Okay, so a couple of things, guys, to do with the lab. Okay, we already talked about pretty much the whole lab report the other day. Okay, that podcast is in Google Classroom along with the assignment itself. Okay, so some suggestions for you here. Okay, when you're putting your lab report together. Okay, if you look at that compounds lab there, okay, there's a few things. There's obviously the lab sheet, which you kind of need to look at as you're doing the lab report. And then there's an observations video. Okay, it's basically me doing the lab. I just had to, like the GoPro or whatever, okay, on the experiment so you could see what results I got. Might not be a bad idea to just confirm your results. Okay, make sure you got stuff that is correct. Okay, and then there's the pre-lab video. Okay, that's from the other day where I walked through. Here's what I'm looking for in the variables. Here's what I'm looking for in the hypothesis. My suggestion to you is this. Watch that when you're putting the finishing touches on your lab report to make sure you haven't missed anything and to make sure that you are doing what I told you the expectations would be for that particular part of the lab report. Okay, there will also be this one posted here shortly. Okay, that's going to talk mostly about the analysis and things like that. Okay, so just make sure that you are looking at all that stuff as well. Okay, so for the analysis, you now have your chart filled in for the observations. Okay, so now what you need to do is fill out this analysis chart. Here's how you do that. Obviously, the ionic molecular one is pretty easy. Which test tells you that? The conductivity test. All right, so just you got A through K there, label them as ionic or molecular based on that test. Then you've got to figure out, was A copper sulfate or was A ethyl alcohol or whatever. Okay, you've got to figure that out. Remember that the possible identities are up here in the materials. Okay, so what you've got to do, or a suggestion would be, okay, look at, okay, sodium hydroxide is NaOH. Okay, so NaOH is an ionic compound, and these are the other properties that it would have. Okay, and then see, do any of my observations fit with what the properties of that compound should be? If they do, that's what it is. All right, that's what you're going to have to do. Okay, now, if you want to, and I mean, you don't have to do this, but if you're kind of stuck on one, Google it. Okay, Google like physical properties of whatever compound it is that you're kind of stuck on. See if you have any observations that kind of fit that. Right? There's nothing wrong with that if you're not sure what the physical properties of that particular material should be. Okay? For most of these, we should know what they are. What their properties should be from lesson 4. Okay, if we look at them, well, this one's ionic and it has hydrogen in it, it should be an acid. Okay, this one's ionic and it has OH in it, so it should be a base. Things like that, okay, are things that we can use to help us identify these. You shouldn't have to Google more than 1 or 2 of them. All right, so that's the expectations for the analysis. That's all you have to do in the analysis is just identify the compounds. For your conclusion, copy and paste your hypothesis. Okay, so just go back up to hypothesis, copy it, paste it back down there, and then tell me, here are my, kind of summarize what your observations were, summarize your analysis a little bit, and then say, this supports or doesn't support my hypothesis about being able to identify the compounds. All right, that's what you have to have in your conclusion. Talk about how your data and analysis either refutes or supports your hypothesis, and that's what you have to write. Don't just write, I was right, okay? Because you'll be wrong, and then you'll lose marks, okay? So you want to have an explanation as to why your hypothesis is acceptable. Evaluation, okay, you need 2 sources of error. We talked about one in the pre-lab, okay? You got to come up with one more, anything that could have affected your ability to gather good data. Okay, that's what the errors have to be about. It's always a good idea to look at your controlled variables as ways, places where you can find sources of error. Okay, if any of them weren't perfectly controlled, then they become a source of error. Okay, but the thing you don't want to write in there is I screwed up. Well, we contaminated sample B, so we didn't get good data for that. Don't tell me that. Okay, what you should have done is redone sample B, okay, in order to get good data for sample B. If you just write we screwed up, I'm going to go, oh, really? That sucks for you, and you're going to get a rotten mark. Okay, you don't want that. That's the last impression I have of your assignment. You don't want me to have that impression of it. Okay, so that's what you're doing for evaluation. Okay, here's my source of error. Here's how it affected the lab. Here's how to fix it. Okay, that's what goes in there. 2 sources. The class discussion you don't have to do. Right? We're going to talk about those when I hand back your labs after they're due. Okay? Questions on any of that? All right, so those are the expectations for the lab. When did I make it due? Um, it is due on February 26th. All right, so that's after the break, right? Like, I mean, it's Thursday now. I can't ask for it tomorrow. I said I wouldn't do that, right? And then I'm not going to ask for it while you're on break. I don't want to mark it next week. Well, I'm not on break, but I still don't want to mark it next week. So, okay, it's due on the 26th. You got lots of time. Okay, 26th is Tuesday, right? Yeah. Anyway, I made sure that there was a day where you'd be able to come in and see me if you had some questions. Okay. So if you've got your lab report done by then, which really you should, okay, then come in and ask if you have any questions, and I can, kind of walk you through or give you some tips. Okay. It's Tuesday. Yeah. Okay. So there you go, guys. That's what's left. You got a few minutes here. I would say maybe talk to your group and start figuring out if you can see what some of those identities are. Okay. You got time, so let's use it.